Starship Troopers Extermination is the recently released new co-op FPS developed by Offworld Industries, and yes, of course, it's set in the Starship Troopers universe. I think it uses the license from the films as well, and it's launched to universal acclaim at the time of recording. It's sat at 93% positive on Steam, which would put it into like a masterpiece category of game. It's on the exact same level at the moment as Elden Ring, for example, a game which has won many Game of the Year titles, but does it actually deserve that acclaim, or are people just riding a wave of nostalgia for the Starship Troopers franchise? If you look at the positive reviews on Steam, they are just quoting the films. The enemy cannot press the thumbs down button if you disable his hand. I'm doing my part. The only good bug is a dead bug. References to the Clandathu drop theme, which is a great piece of music from the original film. I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part. Would you like to know more? People, I think, are just really riding this wave of nostalgia for the films. And when I was playing the game, yeah, people were endlessly quoting Starship Troopers, endlessly quoting Aliens. But once you get past that nostalgic feeling for the franchise, you are just left with ultimately a really shallow and boring co-op shooter. Now, the game doesn't do anything bad. It's not a bad game. It is just ultimately boring. During my second round, I was getting bored already. Yeah, I mean, you fight off waves and waves of bugs. You move from one objective to another to stand in a location and wait for the capture bar to fill. And then the last point of the battle is to build your base. And then you just, hold off another wave and wave and wave of bugs. But that's it. There is another game mode which you unlock at level 5, but what I've heard is that game mode isn't really that great either, and that people just prefer playing this default mode. But ultimately, it's extremely shallow, and are people going to turn around and say, hey, it's just an early access game, it's going to add more content? But the shallow, boring part of the game isn't the content, it's the gameplay loop. The movement and the shooting, I guess, is fine. The shooting sort of feels like a weird mix between squad, postscriptum, and a bit more of a casual shooter. It's like they're just trying to use the gameplay systems from those two games, but then cut out the extra weapon sway that those games have, because they are trying to be more of like a realistic shooter, and Starship Troopers is not that. I don't have too much of an issue with the lack of content on offer. I think it is just the one map. You have 3 classes, an assault type class called the Hunter, which can jetpack, the defensive class, which I can't even remember the name, which can just put down some little small barricades and pretty much operate like a turret, and you have the operator, which is like a healing class. And the enemy types, while they say there's 5 enemy types in the game, really it's only 3. You have the drone, the warrior, and the bigger tiger, which are just the same models. They're just, the traditional Starship Troopers bugs with the talons, but they're just different sizes, and the tiger has a different skin on it. Then you have the gunner, which is like a beetle, and the plasma grenadier thing, which is like the artillery piece. So really there's only 3 enemy variations to have there. And I do think they'll expand on that as the game goes further through development. But when it comes to early access games nowadays, I don't think you can really launch a game and be competitive with it in like a first-person shooter market, because it's a really competitive market with like a lack of content. Because why should anyone play this game instead of a different fully fledged other co-op shooter? Yeah, it's got the Starship Troopers license, but that's all it's got going for it. There are many other co-op shooters out there that do everything better than Starship Troopers. Graphically, the game looks okay. I mean, it's not going to have the best graphics out there because it does have a large amount of AI on screen at once. It needs to keep that frame rate up. I did get a little bit of frame rate hitching here and there, but nothing to really complain about. The audio, I mean, the guns don't sound that great. I can't remember if they sound like accurate compared to what they are in the films, but yeah, they're not impactful enough. They don't really sound that great. There is also a progression system for each of the classes where you get up to a certain rank with those classes and you'll get like a different gadget or a different weapon. There's nothing too special there. And you can create a squad of up to 4 people before you start the matchmaking process, because there are no servers you can actually join or choose to join. It is just pure matchmaking. I think that's a big negative, because if the game's population starts to dip down, they could shut down servers. They could just choose to shut down the servers and then you can't play the game anymore. They should put custom servers into the game. I also think they've missed like a big opportunity to at least make the game a lot more interesting, because while it is just a pure co-op shooter, I think they should have made it as like an asymmetric shooter where you have 16 people playing humans and maybe one guy controlling the entire bug force in like an RTS style. That would have made the game a lot more interesting. Instead of just bugs like randomly spawning out of the ground, you could have someone trying to really coordinate them and try to maybe poke through your defenses in different locations a bit better, or do like one mass wave against you. I think as it is now, the game just doesn't have enough to offer. You can jump into it, you'll get that nostalgic feeling, but then it's just a standard co-op bug hunt. There's nothing special about Starship Troopers, and because its gameplay loop is so boring and shallow, no matter how long it spends in early access, I don't think it's ever gonna have anything decent to offer you. You're much better off saving your money, and if you're really dying for a co-op shooter, look elsewhere. Don't get this game. And that's all I have to say on Starship Troopers Extermination. Let me know what you think about the game down in the comments below. Give this video a like if you liked it, dislike if you didn't. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.